Welcome into Two Guys, One Pod, Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Porter, joined by my co-host, Justin. Justin, we're about to get into some dream landing spots for some of these rookies coming into the league. Welcome to the league, rookie. Ready to get into it?
I, of course, while not being properly introduced by my esteemed co-host here, am the legendary ball knower, aka your favorite podcaster's favorite podcaster, aka Chev90, aka Shedeur Sanders. And ironically enough, we may or may not be talking about Shedeur Sanders today. And I, if you can't tell by the intro, am ready to get into it.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and get into it. Today, like we mentioned, we're going to be bringing to you a player at each position per host here and their dream landing spot in our eyes. You want to go first, or do you want me to go first? Or you to go first, or me to go first?
You can go.
You want me to go first?
Me, me, you, me, me.
You have cookie? I want cookie?
You go.
Anyways,
you go. You.
I'll go ahead.
You
I'll go ahead. I got it. At the running back position, I would love, selfishly, for Khaleb Johnson to go to the Patriots. This is a couple years down the road that I would love for this to happen because the Rhamondre Stevenson contract is a monster. He has a monstrous dead cap hit for the next 2 years, the 25 and the 26 season. So he's locked into being on the team. But if there's one thing that Mike Vrabel is not going to withstand, it's putting the ball on the ground. And currently they have 2 running backs on the roster that are very willing to do that. Khaleb Johnson did not have a registered fumble in the entire 2024/2025 campaign. He is he's a projected day 2 pick. He's in range for the Pats' second round pick. I think they have the 38th overall, and he was projected around the 40 to 42 range in Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 whenever he put that out. While at Tennessee in 2022 and 2023, Derrick Henry handled 71% and 63% of the team's total carries. Don't hear what I'm not saying. Okay, Khaleb Johnson is not Derrick Henry. I'm not trying to make that equation. What I'm trying to say is that Vrabel is very willing to give the majority of the touches on the ground to a singular back. And Khaleb Johnson, if he's kind of like Blake Corum plus, we can get into more analysis if you'd like to, but I think he's much more talented than Blake Corum is. But the main thing that Blake Corum brought to the table that I think Khaleb Johnson does as well, but much better, is he's available and he can take the rock for probably 300-ish times a year if Vrabel will give it to him. Vrabel has shown the propensity to give that lead back a lot of touches. And like I said, Stevenson and Gibson have both just put the ball on the ground way too much. I would love for Khaleb Johnson to go to my New England Patriots in the 2025 NFL Draft.
Boy, I did not think we were going to get off to such a start of just disagreeing completely.
Okay, go ahead. Let me have it.
So just with Khaleb Johnson, I don't want him to go somewhere and have to sit for a couple years. Like I want him. I need him to be available right now. Okay, I need that instant gratification. Right, I need him to be steamed all the way up. I mean, I have him in my rookie rankings. Spoiler alert for those crazy cool cats and kittens that are listening right now. I want to talk some Dynasty. I have him ahead of Travion Henderson. Yes. Mm-hmm. So I don't need him to sit. I don't need him to be behind Rhamondre, even though stylistically those guys are very much similar. And Khaleb Johnson does have the one thing that Mike Vrabes, Big Vrabes, seems to value, and that's ball security. And like you alluded to earlier, Antonio Gibson and Rhamondre do not. So I would love, my dream landing spot for Khaleb Johnson would be the Chicago Bears.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Now, hold on. I before, because you got your own running back with your own dream landing spot. I don't need you to also have a dream landing spot for the running back that I bring up.
Yeah.
So I wanted to
I'm
kind
just
of turn
telling you.
this back to kind of refute it a little bit. I don't want you to hear what I'm not saying. Hold on. This is my player. I get to talk. You can talk about your player. I was not saying that he's going to come onto this team and sit for 2 years while Rhamondre plays his contract out. I am saying that it's just a mild inconvenience that there is this massive dead cap hit with the Rhamondre Stevenson contract. And I see like Rhamondre has to be a part of this team in some capacity for the next 2 years. I think that if we see the fumble production is not the right phrase, but if we see the happenings of the fumbles the way that they've happened Rhamondre's entire career with the Patriots, it is going to take very little time for Vrabel to be very tired of that, in my opinion. It's going to take maybe, 2, 3, 4 games before we start seeing Khaleb Johnson in a significant fashion on the field if Rhamondre Stevenson is going to put the ball on the field.
The
Not
continued.
2
I'm gonna
years.
say it. I'm gonna say it in the most corporate way possible. The continued fruition of a presence, a lack of ball security. Yeah.
Acceptable.
Yeah, that's a whole bunch of words to say stop fumbling, jerk.
His bandwidth for the processes
of carrying the ball and gaining yards are hindered by his inability to hold on to the football. Oh God. See, this is why we can't record when I just got off work, bro. I still got all that corporate in my brain and not enough football. I don't got enough ball in me. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hey, moving on.
For the Alabama.
Moving on. So here we go. My dream landing spot is the Denver Broncos, and my dream running back to go there is Brashard Smith. Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay. Let it marinate.
So yeah, just if you've listened to anything that I've said about the running back class over the last 60 days or so, I can't stop singing the praises of Brashard Smith. I can't, I won't, I will not. And now I even have like some ammunition because of the fact that Brashard Smith visited with the Denver Broncos at the combine. They're visiting with running backs galore. So we know Sean Payton is looking to select a running back in the draft, and this is the one I want him to select. Let me tell you why. The Joker role is something that Sean Payton's been very, very vocal about having in the offense. And while they've given Evan Ingram a significant sum of money, 2 years, $23 million, 16.5 guaranteed, we know what that could be for 2024. We also know that Evan Ingram isn't the healthiest hen in the hen house. So that very easily could mean that we get 2 years of Evan Ingram just chilling on IR for the most part. And when that happens, the Broncos running backs in 2024, Rick, would you like to guess how many receptions Javonte Williams, Audric Estime, and Jaleel McLaughlin combined for in 2024?
I don't want to think about that running room at all.
I'm asking you to think about it.
Go ahead.
I'm asking you to think about it.
I don't. Okay, how many receptions they
Yeah,
had?
I know thinking about these guys makes you soft serve in a sauna. However, I just want you to throw a number out there.
I would say that I think that between all the running backs, they had 60 targets.
Not 60 targets, 81 receptions between those 3 Jags. And by Jag, I mean just a guy.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
And so Brashard Smith comes in as a former 4-star recruited receiver who amassed over 700 yards. 700 yards as a receiver before transferring to SMU and transitioning to running back. So now we have a guy who has the complete profile that fits. I mean, is he going to be Alvin Kamara? No, nobody's Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is a borderline Hall of Famer, even though he's never rushed for 1,000 yards. And he is the perfect archetype of the Joker role. I think Brashard Smith could have similar success if he lands in Denver, and that is why this is my dream landing spot.
My only issue with that is the size. Like I incorrectly, people, including me, as of 4-ish years ago, thought of Alvin Kamara as a smaller scat back. He is not. He's about 5'10", 215, 220 when he came into the league. And Brashard Smith is a lighter guy. Goes 4'3" at the combine. 5'10", 195 is what he weighs in at. To be effective in the Joker role, he has to handle either not extreme volume, but good, decent volume, or extreme efficiency. Outside of Cortland Sutton, no one was efficient in this offense last year. That's my only concern. I think that what I saw from him at SMU was electric. I loved it. I thought he put up a great days at the combine, but the size scares me.
Are you afraid of Bucky Irving?
How many Bucky Irvings have there been in the last 10
Kyron
years?
Williams.
Okay, 2.
I mean,
Next.
Jaleel McLaughlin.
No. Okay, so is Jaleel McLaughlin the season? Is that what you're hoping for?
No, I'm hoping that Brashard Smith, a former wide receiver in the Joker role, goes in and catches passes a la Reggie Bush, a la Pierre Thomas, a la any pass-catching running back that has had success in a Sean Payton offense. That's what I'm hoping for. I don't really.
Yes,
I
and
don't.
I understand.
I'm not concerned. I won't be turned off by, oh well, he's not 200 pounds, so he can't be successful. I mean, I said this exact same thing to you about Kyron Williams, and you were like, well, Kyron Williams in Sean Payton's offense is gonna get the lion's share of the carries. It's like I could care less how big he is. If the offense trusts him enough to give him opportunities, I'm going to capitalize on that.
Now, what you're leaving out there is when we had that conversation. This was already after Kyron Williams had played 12 games in the Sean McVay offense, and in those 12 games had paced along with Christian McCaffrey, who was RB1 2 years ago.
And gotten hurt.
So this was not something that I was trying to project. Yeah, he got hurt, sure. So
you were willing to ignore
that's a whole
the fact
different
that he got
conversation
hurt.
we can talk
Now
about.
we're talking about a guy who's not even in the NFL yet. I gave you a perfect comp of exactly his measurables, but he's faster and more athletic with a better, more refined skill set. And you're like, well, I don't know about his size. Cool, man. Let's move on.
No. I said my only question was this, and I was trying to point out when it happens, it's electric and it can be extremely valuable, especially in rookie drafts when he's being drafted in he's like at the 204, 205 range.
He's in the middle of the third round. Actually, the back end of the third round.
Middle of the third round. That's insane value for someone who could represent that kind of upside. In the third round, absolutely take your shot. At the back of the second, absolutely take your shot. I'm just saying the hit rate is low. That's all I'm saying. When it hits, it's extremely valuable.
Yep. It's not like I have a track record of pulling those out of my butt either.
I can point out a lot of misses, just like you can with me. But like you said, we can move on. My wide receiver is Tre Harris. My ideal landing spot is the Packers. He profiles as a traditional outside wide receiver at 6'2", 205. Excellent per-game production his senior year at Ole Miss. In 8 games, he puts up 60 for 10, 30, and 7. The Packers, and notably Josh Jacobs, have been making noise about needing and wanting a wide receiver 1. There was rumors about them trying to be in the mix for DK Metcalf. That didn't happen. I think most would consider, not most, it's been talked about by almost every pundit that I've heard. It's a weak wide receiver class. And honestly, I think people are sleeping a little bit on Tre Harris because he got hurt so early in the season. And the Packers, they have shown a propensity to draft and develop wide receivers. I think he's got a lot of potential to be a traditional X wide receiver on the outside that they've shown a want for.
Yeah, I love Tre Harris. I mean, he's my wide receiver 3 in this class. And I just, while many have questions and the recency bias of the failures of Jonathan Mingo and the physical similarities between the two players are going to stick out in people's brains, I don't have those concerns. Turn on the tape, watch him play football. He's very, very good. He was first team all conference USA before transferring from Lafayette. It wasn't Lafayette. It was just the University of Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, transferring to Ole Miss and then going back-to-back 900-yard seasons before going over 1,000 in just 8 games this year. So, yes, I absolutely love Tre Harris, and I can't wait. If he lands somewhere with a good quarterback, I'm going to be overdrafting him.
Yes, agreed. And right now he's being mocked as a third round pick, which is I think in the third round that's when the Packers would be very comfortable selecting him. I think if it's a top 2 round guy, because this is perceived as a weaker draft class, I don't know that they would spend that capital because they're an extremely smart franchise. I think a third round pick is a sweet spot for them. They spent that kind of capital on Christian Watson and Romeo Dubs and other receivers in the past, and had pretty good success with those guys. But with Christian Watson's supposed to miss all of 2025, is he
Most
not?
of it, yeah. He won't be back until at least November, is
Yeah,
what the early reports are saying.
right. So I see them drafting a wide receiver, not being able to land one in the free agency kind of solidifies that in my mind. They've made the bones about wanting an outside guy. He's one of the few that actually profiles as one, and I love it.
Yeah, I need them. They're gonna get a receiver, mostly because of the fact that Dobbs is in the final year of his contract. Christian Watson is. Dontavian Wicks is on his 3rd year. Jaden Reed's going into his 3rd year. Like, they've got to add to the room just in case contract negotiations go sideways. So yeah, I'm keyed up. My receiver, and I will shout out Dynasty Mike for this one. We discussed this player, and I've been pretty high on him throughout the process. And it was just a little confirmation bias when he said it initially. But I think my dream landing spot is for Jalen Royals to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Christian Kirk departs. They bring in De'Ami Brown. They have Parker Washington. Neither one of those guys' skill sets scare me with a guy like Jalen Royals. We're talking about a guy who averaged over 3 yards per route run in 2024 before breaking his foot. I believe he goes to the Senior Bowl. He tells everybody, I mean, his agent is letting everybody know there that he's not at 100%. He goes out and dominates and wins in every fashion imaginable for just a receiver that we questioned his level of competition as to being the catalyst for his monster production as a junior. Then he paces for over 1,400 yards again his senior year before the injury. He finishes with 839 on 55 catches. And this is a guy that just, I mean, in terms of being a yak monster, there's only a couple guys better than him in the class, and their names are Luther Burden and Travis Hunter. So after the catch, this is a guy who could absolutely chew up yardage, and he's going to dominate in the middle of the field. Primarily at Utah State, he had a 78% outside wide receiver alignment. I don't think that he's obviously not going, he can win there, but I don't think that that's where his bread is going to get buttered. In this Liam Cohen offense, he could step into the Chris Godwin role day one and dominate as a slot receiver or on the move as a Z receiver. Brian Thomas is going to command coverage after his dominant rookie season. And I absolutely think that this would be a dream landing spot. You have a $250 million quarterback, and you want to take all the excuses away from whether or not he can be an upper echelon, upper tier quarterback. Sure, he's got a playoff win, but there are more questions than answers about Trevor Lawrence. So let's give him a receiver on day 2 that can come in and win against nickel corners and pad those passing stats for Trevor Lawrence. And my guy to do that here is Jalen Royals.
I love it. I love it. I like the angle of taking away excuses from Trevor Lawrence. You've got the contract. You've got a legit top 5 wide receiver in the league now. We're going to get you a secondary pass catching option, and now it's up to you. You former number 1 overall pick, draft pick of the decade, the new guy. Do what you were supposed to do. And if you can't, then we need to start making plans to move on. I like setting it up like that for him to succeed. And I think Liam Cohen he could shine as a new burgeoning offensive mind. So I love the call. I think that could be very productive for us. Mike,
Yeah, man. I just
go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, that just man, I like I said, I again shout out to Dynasty Mike. I heard him mention this and I was like, no, that makes perfect sense. And I'm really, really excited now to see if they go with that archetype of wide receiver or if they go a different direction. But you can almost rest assured that Jacksonville is another location that's going to add some receiver talent to the room.
My pick for quarterback is Jaxon Dart, and my ideal location for him to go would be the Saints. The Saints have just, I don't know how they do it, but they keep on kicking the can down the road with these contracts. And do not look at the man behind the curtain. That is the Derek Carr contract. It's gargantuan as far as his dead cap hits over the next 2 years. After that, they can get out of it. But guaranteed money isn't crazy high. But again, his dead cap hit is crazy. It's insane. I'm not sure if you've looked at it Spotrac in a while, but it reminds me of like a Kirk Cousins situation where at a certain point they're going to be like, we're gonna have to make a change. And Spencer Rattler's not that guy. I don't care what the noise is. I watched enough of this guy in college. I watched enough of him whenever he had to fill in for Derek Carr last year. He is not that dude. I don't know that Jaxon Dart is, but I think he's got a gun attached to his shoulder, and he's willing to take downfield shots. And along with that, he's going to have two guys on the outside, Olave, if he can keep his head on his shoulders, and Rashid Shaheed, whenever his knee comes back fully healthy, that are going to be really good downfield targets for him, along with a newly extended Jawan Johnson on a 4-year deal, not to mention the newly extended Alvin Kamara on another 2-year deal. So he has offensive weapons. He has the ability to throw the ball downfield. He has an offensive coordinator that has schemed up top 10 offenses for the past 4 years in a row. And I think that Jaxon Dart in New Orleans could be very productive for fantasy.
I love that. I love that. One way to get yourself out of cap purgatory is to select a rookie quarterback. And the quarterback that I selected is going to help this franchise get out of cap purgatory
Interesting.
of the Deshaun Watson contract. Shedeur Sanders.
Interesting.
To the Cleveland Browns. So
now hold on.
Here we have.
I want to ask a question here. Just what pick do the Browns have?
2.
Okay. So as long as he is not selected by the Titans, which I think most people are mocking Cam Ward to the Titans, there's a legitimate chance for this to happen.
Daddy Ward to the Titans, yes. And then Shedeur comes to the Cleveland Browns. Are you with me?
I'm with you. I'm waiting for the rest of the case.
So this is a ready-made situation for any quarterback that's a pocket passer to step into. We've seen Jameis Winston have flashes of success. We've seen Joe Flacco come off the couch and win a comeback player of the year because Stefanski's system lends itself to success for a quarterback that's willing to play within the structure of the offense that Stefanski has so carefully curated over the last 5 or 6 years. So now we have a guy who had the highest completion percentage in clean pockets in the NCAA in 2024. He's a legacy kid. He's specialized in dragging programs from the abyss and making them culturally relevant on a large scale. So when you have a guy that's come in with that type of panache, that type of cachet, it's a ready-made situation for him. Now, what is the one thing that we know about Shedeur Sanders? He's extremely accurate. And what do guys like Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku and Cedric Tillman, what do they all need? They need a quarterback that can deliver accurate targets. When good Jameis is around, They are eating full-fledged. It's an Ethiopian child at the buffet. They're eating so much. Now, we're missing, okay? We're missing that key component in Cleveland. And them selecting anything other than a quarterback here to start the rebuild process, they can't get out from Deshaun Watson's contract until 2026, even though they're going to recoup a ton of that money because of injury guarantees and stuff. So let's start the rebuild process. Let's get Shedeur Sanders to the Cleveland Browns, and let's see what happens here. I think that he has all the tools to be a very successful NFL quarterback, and we've seen Stefanski do more with less. And I believe that this is a pairing that's going to feed families for many years to come.
I love it. I love the pairing. For some reason, I just forget about Cleveland as being a QB needy team. That is like it's the key that unlocks the door to their progression as a team and back into the competitive race of the AFC North. So you give Stefanski a very accurate quarterback. You give him a pocket passer. You give him someone who can operate his offense, and he doesn't need the best quarterback. He can make it work with a rookie. And I'm not saying that Shedeur is just a guy. He's not a jag. What I am saying is that traditionally rookies are harder to make those offenses work with. And I think with Stefanski, it's not going to be that hard. He's going to it's going to be productive if they can get Shedeur Sanders, if they take that draft pick. Yeah, I can see that working very well for all involved. What do you think that does for the production of Cedric Tillman, who we saw fall off a little bit towards the end of the year? He's not in everybody's mind's eye because of the injury. I think it was a concussion that he took a while to come back from. What do you?
Yeah, the concussion ended his season.
Exactly, and it was kind of he was questionable for a while, and they said no, he's just out. Do you think that was
Right.
a Olave type, hey, it was really bad concussion, or do you think it was more of a Keenan Allen last year on the Chargers type of injury where it's like there's no reason to bring him back? You were much more tapped into Cedric Tillman than I was.
I think it's a combination of both, if we're being honest. Like I think that we were looking at a guy that was on the verge of breaking out. Even in Jerry Jeudy's breakout game against the Saints, I believe, he still had 8 targets. And I went back and watched every single one of them. And it was just missed opportunities where he was getting open and Jameis just missed him. So I think that him and Judy could be a powerful 1-2 punch with David Njoku getting the most manufactured targets of any tight end in the league and dominating in a yak fashion. So, I mean, if you've got those built-in safety nets, and then you know they're going to take a running back, and if they don't, Jerome Ford's one of the biggest steals from a value perspective right now. But you're almost certain they're going to take a running back. So they're building this thing around they're building this thing to be just, hey, plug and play. If this guy can play at all, then that person is going to have success. Any one of these 3 quarterbacks. I mean, I'm not as high on Jaxon Dart, but he could still play. There's no question about whether or not he's an NFL quarterback. It's just I would like to see these 2 guys play early, and I think Jaxon Dart could benefit from just sitting for a year. Just like, I mean, like Mahomes did, like some other quarterbacks do, like Drake May did for 8 games. He would have sat the whole year if the offensive line wasn't so horrible and Jacoby Brissett just was getting pummeled to death. But I think that this is a situation where whoever the young quarterback is, if they get one in, that lends itself to success. And I mean, he's in the back. Shedeur himself is in the back end of the first round of rookie drafts right now. So that's a tremendous value for a guy walking into Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, and David Njoku to throw to off the bat.
I agree. I love the value and I like the pick. And I like the odds for it to happen are very high as well. It's not just pie in the sky. Like that's something that actually occur. We could see happen in real time. My pick for tight end, Colston Loveland. I would love to see him go to the Los Angeles Chargers. Last year, we saw Loveland take a step forward as primary target in his offense. He had career highs in yards, catches per game, and touchdowns per game. It was yards per game as well as total yards in the season. Along with dealing with a shoulder injury that he did have surgery on that he is fully recovered from. In the first Jim Harbaugh year, we saw an effort to involve any pass catcher outside of Ladd McConkey, up to and including Quentin Johnson and Will Dissly. I love Will Dissly. I like the story of Will Dissly. He has torn every ligament and tendon in his body, and he's still out there playing football. I like it. He is not what Colston Loveland represents offensively, and that's just fine. From week 7 to 11, Will Dissly received 33 targets for an average of 6.5 targets per week. And in an offense that was not throwing the ball a terrible lot. Like it was not a crazy volume that they were throwing. He was still garnering 6.5 targets a week because it was necessary. You make Colston Loveland necessary to the tune of 6 to 7 targets a week, it's going to be productive. The only signing in the offseason that's any cause for pause is Mike Williams, and that's a 1-year deal for $3 million. That's not the future. And I think that pairing Justin Herbert with 2 young pass catchers and Colston Loveland and Ladd McConkey is the future that Jim Harbaugh wants to plan for his quarterback that he loves so dearly.
Man, I think that this is almost a cheat code. You got Jim Harbaugh getting his guy out of Ann Arbor, reuniting, and then pairing him with the tight end whisperer. Pause if needed. Greg Roman, the kingmaker, the man who was responsible for Mark Andrews' tight end 1 season. And Colston Loveland, if you've gotten into the film on Colston Loveland at all, he separates like a receiver. He is very sudden and fluid. You know, you have a lot of guys saying he doesn't force, everybody's putting out, if you put out enough Colston Loveland propaganda, you start to have people that dissent. Personally, before I got into the film, I was like, okay, I prefer Harold Fannin Jr. Harold Fannin Jr. is really, really good, but Colston Loveland has the prototypical size, and he separates and moves like a smaller man. And that's what we like to see at the tight end position. So I'm with you here. This could be very, very interesting if the Chargers do decide to go with Colston Loveland and make him a focal point in this passing offense because of what we've seen this role represent previously.
And this is not just crazy, terribly giving away the lead here. You're about to talk about Tyler Warren, the overall tight end 1 in the draft. Uncontested, by the way. I think, in my mind, from anybody I've listened to, from what I see with my own eyes, I think that there is going to be a mild overdrafting of tight end just in general because of the weakness, the perceived weakness of wide receivers in this draft class. But I originally wanted to put a wide receiver with the Chargers, but I think it makes so much more sense to have a tight end, especially Colston Loveland, go, like you say, reunite with Jim Harbaugh, get with Greg Roman, get with a great quarterback, be a secondary pass-catching option in an offense that desperately needs one. Like, not only is this a good fit, there is a need here, and I think that one can necessitate the other. And I think that this is one of those where I think that there is a legitimate chance of it happening, along with it being a dream destination. But I already kind of gave it away. Sorry about that. Go ahead and tell us about Tyler Warren.
So I got asked this because of, well, I didn't get asked this. I did a mock draft with the guys over at the FFD, and I was looking at the mock draft. It was Jordan Reed's 2.0 mock draft on ESPN.com, and he had Tyler Warren going to the New Orleans Saints. And so I looked at it, and I was like, ew. That was my initial reaction. Just ew. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, wait, who supported Darren Waller to his tight end 1 seasons? Was that Derek Carr? It sure was. He supported Darren Waller to 146, 117, and 93 targets in an injury-abbreviated season. Darren Waller and Tyler Warren are very similar talents. Now, obviously, Darren Waller is a 4.4 receiver and slightly better athlete, but listen, if you watch Tyler Warren play, you see that this is the best in class from a run after catch perspective at the position. Hands down, no equivocations. This is a guy who's also prolific. He had 17 catches and 200 yards in a game. So we're not grasping at straws with this comparison here. Now we move on to the fact that Kellen Moore we see that his offense is an amoeba. It will form around whatever the best talents are and funnel targets to that person. We saw him in an offense with CeeDee Lamb, and they're lacking a secondary target. We saw him support Dalton Schultz with 105 targets and finish with a tight end 3 season with over 800 yards and 8 touchdowns in 2021, I believe. And so we're talking about, I believe it was 2022. Either way, go look it up. 105 targets, 808 yards, 8 touchdowns. Dalton Schultz with Kellen Moore fed families the year that bore itself out. So then we talk about the easiest path to success. Yes, Jaxon Johnson just signed a 3-year, $30 million deal. He's going to have a role in the offense. It doesn't matter. I don't care. Jaxon Johnson has been a reliable red zone weapon that's used sparsely thus far to his career. I believe his career high in catches is 42. 442 for 507 and maybe 7. That's his career high. We're talking about a guy who's, if he goes here, he's going there with the 9th pick. So we have a first-round capital tight end to come in and command red zone targets from day one. Let's talk about his path to success. We're talking about him competing with Chris Olave, who has suffered 5 documented concussions in his career. One more hit and he could be done. Or he could choose to be like Tua and go out on his shield. We have Rashid Shaheed, who occupies a completely different role. Rick already alluded to all these things. The only person that I would be worried about him siphoning targets from potentially would be Alvin Kamara. So he might not even have a high volume role in year 1, but he's by far and away their best red zone threat as a pass catching option the minute that he signs on the dotted line as a New Orleans Saint. So this is my dream landing spot because of the fact that Derek Carr and Kellen Moore have shown you that they will hyper target a tight end, and them being, them combining like Captain Planet style to get Colston Loveland, to get Tyler Warren to a tight end 1 finish just makes me take my pants off in the cement aisle.
I love it. I love Tyler Warren. I thought that I liked Colston Loveland more, and then I just got into the tape of Tyler Warren, and it's not close.
Mm-hmm.
I am aware of my mistake.
That's not a slight to Colston Loveland at all, right?
No, not at all. I think that, let me see, 2 years ago we saw my mind's blanking, but quarterback for Houston Texans, can't think of his name. CJ Stroud. We saw CJ Stroud navigate a pocket to his right and throw on the run to an open Nico Collins about 12 yards downfield. And we were watching the game, or at the same time, we weren't together. And we were texting at the time. We said, that was, like, we kind of wanted to say it really quiet. Like, that was kind of like Patrick Mahomes-esque. Like, it was not Patty, but it was esque. And on a couple of the catch and runs and the physicality and the pure athleticism, I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is Rob Gronkowski-esque. This is a tight end that we have, if he is utilized correctly and they correctly take advantage of his athletic prowess, I could see him turning into Gronk-esque. And I don't want to say Gronk because what comes with that, but I don't think that it is disparaging him to say that even if he is 85% of what Gronk was, he's going to have a fantastic career and a productive career for us as fantasy players.
Absolutely. And that's the point. It's just when you talk about ceiling outcomes for a guy, you're not saying, oh, yeah, he's going to be Rob Gronkowski, but he doesn't have to be Rob Gronkowski to turn in a very, very impactful tight end 1 season. So yes, I would love to see him here. He's in theory, he would be paired with your dream quarterback scenario, and they could feed families for ages.
Agreed. Agreed. And with that, we have gone through a player per position, each of us giving our dream landing spots. Run through them again. I had Jaxon Dart at QB, Khaleb Johnson at running back, Tre Harris at wide receiver, and Colston Loveland at tight end. Colston Loveland going to the Chargers, Khaleb Johnson going to the Pats, Jaxon Dart going to the New Orleans Saints, and Tre Harris going to the Packers. JC, you want to recap your picks and your dream landing spots?
Yes, at quarterback, I had Shedeur Sanders going to the Cleveland Browns. I had wide receiver, I had Jalen Royals going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. At running back, I had Brashard Smith going to the Denver Broncos. And at tight end, I had Tyler Warren going to the New Orleans Saints.
And with that, we'll go ahead and say goodnight. Thank you all very much for listening, liking, downloading, subscribing, all that fun stuff. Give us a follow over on Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, Blue Sky, and TikTok. Also on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. I am Brick316. Justin is Chev90. If you could, please leave us a 5-star review in Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever your listening platform is. It does help the show greatly. And y'all have a great night.
Yeah, I just want to say again on behalf of Rick and I, thank you so much. We just had a meeting with the Fantasy Sports Advice Network where we are now hosted, and we were a top 10 fantasy football podcast on Spotify, and that is all in large part to our listenership. So we greatly appreciate you, and please come on back because this is a ton of fun for us. Have a good night, everybody.
And it's just the beginning.
Yes. Good night, everyone.